Picture a silent valley in Egypt, endless rock, bright sun, and a single stairway cut into the ground, forgotten for over 3,000 years. On November 26, 1922, archaeologist Howard Carter lights a candle and peers through a tiny hole. "Can you see anything?" his patron asks. Carter whispers, "Yes, wonderful things." We open on the Valley of the Kings, the royal graveyard of pharaohs. Many tombs were robbed long ago, but not this one. This tomb is different. Inside waits a boy king named Tutankhamun, King Tut, dead at 19, yet about to become the most famous ancient person on Earth. Carter's team begins carefully clearing the entrance. The passageway is packed tight. Seals are unbroken. The door opens. Gold shines in the candlelight. Thrones, statues, beds, chariots, bows and arrows. 5,398 items in total. It will take 10 years to remove everything safely. The world holds its breath as each room reveals more treasure. The most famous object sits deep inside, close to the king's body. A face made of 22 pounds of gold, calm eyes, gentle smile, a royal headdress with a cobra and vulture. This is Tutankhamun's golden death mask, the symbol of ancient Egypt itself. But the truth is complicated. Some things in Tut's tomb don't quite fit. The tomb is small for a pharaoh. Some items look like they were made for other people, then reused. Even the king's mummification looks rushed and unusual. Why? Was there a race against time? And the big question, was the mask truly made for Tutankhamun, or for someone else? As Egypt builds a new $1 billion Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo, all of Tut's treasures will be reunited for the first time since 1922. Scientists now use powerful tools, X-rays, scanners, and forensic tests to read the secrets hidden in gold and stone. At last, we may know the truth behind the mask. A leading conservator finally tests the mask's metal and makes it discover that could end a century of arguments. A museum for a king. Cairo prepares a new home for Tut's treasures, the Grand Egyptian Museum, a vast modern building set near the pyramids. For the first time, all 5,298 artifacts from the tomb are gathered together. Royal beds, bows and arrows, chariots, jewelry, toys, sandals, even food for the afterlife. Many items have never been shown to the public. The crates arrive under tight security. White-gloved staff lift each object with care. Egyptologists cheer and gasp. "Look at the horse," one shouts, admiring a delicate model shrine with tiny open-work designs. A child's footstool, a scepter, gilded shrines, so many personal pieces, each telling a chapter of Tut's short life. But as experts sort and study, strange patterns appear. Some Shabti figures, little servant statues meant to serve the king in the next world, do not all look like Tut. Slightly different noses, lips, and cheeks. Were some made for someone else? The timeline is tight. Ancient Egyptian law allowed about 70 days from death to burial, the time needed to mummify the body. That means craftsmen had only weeks to finish a king's full set of burial goods. If Tut died suddenly at 19, the workshops may have been forced to reuse objects already on hand. Curators logged the growing evidence. Inscriptions changed, names patched, pieces mixed up. Over 1,000 items may be second-hand. This isn't normal for a royal burial, so why did this happen to a pharaoh? If nearly a quarter of the tomb was reused, did the mask also come from someone else? Perhaps even the famous Queen Nefertiti? The tomb that felt too small. The Valley of the Kings holds grand corridors, massive chambers, and miles of painted scenes. But Tutankhamun's tomb is small, simple, and half-decorated. Carter and his crew struggle to work around the tight space. The burial chamber can barely hold Tom, the giant gilded shrines and the stone sarcophagus. A plan drawing from Carter's notebooks shows a problem. The outer coffin does not fit cleanly into the sarcophagus. Edges are chipped to make the lid close. It's like trying to fit a large box into a smaller one. Something about the design and measurements feels hurried. Egyptologists compare Tut's tomb to the tomb of his successor, Ai. Ai's tomb is larger, more elaborate, and beautifully painted. The contrast is shocking. A pharaoh's burial that looks right versus Tut's burial that seems rushed and cramped. Did A take the grand tomb meant for Tut and leave the young king with a smaller space? The clues build. Rushed construction, objects reused, measurements off. The story behind the mask might live inside these clues. In Oxford, researchers open Carter's files and find signs of nameplate edits and faces that don't match, including a crucial coffin that seems to wear someone else's face. Second hand for a pharaoh? In the museum labs, scholars examine name rings, cartouches, and inlays. Some inscriptions seem adjusted. On gold bands that wrapped the mummy, a conservator spots traces of a different royal name underneath, evidence that the item once belonged to another pharaoh. The Shabtis faces vary, and the middle coffin, the one inside the outer coffin but outside the inner, looks different from the other two. It's heavily inlaid with colored glass, not solid gold like the others. Its face seems broader, the jaw squarer, not exactly Tut's. An Egyptologist proposes a bold idea. The middle coffin was recycled, reinscribed from someone else's burial set. Why would they do this? Because time was short. If the king died suddenly, the team might have grabbed high-quality pieces already in the royal workshops, then reworked them to serve in Tut's funeral. This raises a thrilling and worrying question. If a coffin could be reused, could the mask have been reused too? A famous theory spreads. The mask may have originally belonged to Nefertiti, and Tut's face was added later. Scientists test the mask to find the truth. 70 days. Ancient Egyptians believed death led to a new life. But to enter the next world, a body had to be mummified and given magical objects to help the soul. By tradition, the schedule was strict, around 70 days between death and burial. That means everything had to be ready fast, very fast. Tutankhamun's death at 19 likely came suddenly. Workshops may not have had time to produce every item fresh, so they reached for what was available: older objects from royal stores, items once meant for others, even parts that needed reassembly. One ceremonial bed shows mixed inscriptions, as if its parts were put together incorrectly under pressure. It's a puzzle you solve in a rush. Pieces fit, but not perfectly. Meanwhile, a bigger mystery emerges from the mummy itself. Tut's mummification is odd. The incision to remove internal organs is not in the usual place or size, and the heart, the most sacred organ, needed to think and feel in the afterlife, is missing. No other royal mummy in the museum shares this problem. Why was his heart gone? Maybe Tut died far from home, and the first treatment of the body was done by people who were not experts, leading to mistakes that followed him into eternity. A's shadow. After Tut's death, the throne passes to A high official. His own tomb in the valley is larger, richer, and fully decorated, the kind of tomb Tut should have had. Some scholars think the grand tomb planned for Tut was taken by A during the power shift, forcing Tut into a smaller tomb close by. Why would A do that? Power moves are often quick and quiet. A sudden death opens doors. If A secured the throne fast, he would also control the funeral and burial arrangements. In a rush, his team might reuse high-quality objects from earlier periods and adjust them for Tut. The story written in stone becomes a story of politics. We return to the mask. Theories have swirled for years. Some believe the cartouche, name ring, on the mask shows signs of re-engraving. Others point out that the gold color of the face looks slightly different from the rest, as if the faceplate was replaced. The most headline-grabbing idea? That the original owner could have been Queen Nefertiti, one of history's most famous women. At last, a conservator gains rare permission to inspect the mask closely, with tools that can see inside the gold itself. Inside the gold. Conservator Christian Ekman begins a careful study of the golden mask in Cairo. The lab is quiet. Lights are bright. The mask rests on soft supports. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to examine an icon. First, he studies the cartouche, Tutankhamun's name on the left shoulder. He notices lines that some people thought meant a name had been recarved. But Ekman explains another possibility. The mask is made from multiple gold sheets, joined with seams. The line crosses a join, not a scratched-out name. That changes the story. Next, he uses X-ray fluorescence, XRF. This tool reads the element mix inside the gold without harming it. He checks over 100 points across the mask: face, headdress, collar. If the faceplate had been replaced later, the metal blend might be different there. The results? The gold composition matches across the mask, including the face. The face is not a later insert. He adds a practical note. If someone had cut out the face and soldered in a new one after the mask was finished, the glass and stone inlays around the face would have been damaged by heat. They are not. The craftsmanship looks consistent. The mask seems to be one original piece, made as a whole for Tutankhamun. If the mask is truly Tut's, how did craftsmen achieve such a masterpiece in just 70 days? How to make immortality. Imagine being a goldsmith in ancient Egypt. You have weeks, not years. You must create a face that will be seen forever. The mask's gold is shaped, joined, and work-hardened. Thin sheets are fitted together perfectly. The inlays, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, carnelian from India, obsidian likely from Anatolia, are cut and set with tiny precision. The cobra and vulture on the brow symbolize kingship over Lower and Upper Egypt. Every detail is a message. This is the king. Remember him. The mask is not just beautiful. It is magical. It allowed the soul, the Ba and Ka, to recognize the body and live again in the next world. That's why the likeness matters. Tut's face on his mask is calm, strong, and young. It's a promise of safe passage. Ekman admires the veins painted inside the eyes, the balance of features, the perfect polish. He says that even today, with modern tools, it would be hard to make a mask this perfect so fast. Yet the ancient craftsman did it, under pressure, and without a single crack in the story the gold tells. If the mask is original to Tut, who then owned all the reused items in the tomb? And what do they say about the final days of his reign? Reused, remixed, remembered. Back in the stores, teams finish cataloging the hundreds of shabtis, bows, sticks, sandals, and ceremonial furniture. The pattern holds. In a rushed funeral, people reused what they could. They reinscribed names. They mixed parts by mistake. The bed with mixed signs shows someone was doing complex work in narrow corridors and tight time. Experts return to the missing heart mystery. It still stands out. It could hint that Tut died far from the Nile, perhaps on campaign or a journey, and the early treatment of the body was improvised. By the time the body returned to Thebes, mistakes were already in place and could not be reversed. Meanwhile, the museum finishes a respectful redisplay plan. Tut's treasures will be arranged so visitors can see the entire story, from boyhood to kingship to afterlife. The goal isn't just to show gold, it's to show the human behind the gold. The final move begins. The mask is prepared to travel to its new home, and the world readies to see it as Tut intended. Face to face. Under high security, the golden mask is carefully lifted. A custom crate waits. Conservators check supports, humidity, and light levels. This is not just an object. It is a face known across the world. In the new gallery, lights dim and then rise. The mask sits alone at first, then the surrounding treasures take their places. The nested coffins diagram. the sarcophagus model, the childhood seat, the Shabdi army. Panels explain the science, XRF testing, metal seams, intact inlays, and the 70-day challenge. Visitors step closer. Some gasp. Some whisper. It feels like meeting Tut himself. The story ends where it began, with a young king in a small tomb, buried in a hurry, with help from the past, and yet remembered forever. The mask was made for him. The craftsmen beat the clock, and in that race against time, they created a masterpiece that carried Tutankhamun's name across 3 millennia to us. But one more question remains in the shadows of the valley. How did Tutankhamun die? Accident, illness, or conspiracy? The next chapter follows the clues inside the bones,